A Cloud Bank of Nectar by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. Chapter 3. Text 3h. The two types of living entities invested with the potency of Bhagavan. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Sentient beings empowered with divine majesty are also of two types. Those who are empowered with knowledge arising from an aspect of the internal potency of the Lord, or Chit-Shakti, and those who are invested with the creative potency which arises from an aspect of the illusory energy, or Maya Shakti. The former category includes the four sons born from the mind of Brahma, namely Chatushan, or Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan, and Sanatakumara. The latter category includes Brahma and others. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Those invested with the Lord's Aishwarya Shakti are also of two types. The first are invested with the Lord's transcendental potency, or Chit-Shakti, or the Lord's divine majestic potency of transcendental knowledge, arising from the Lord's internal potency. Examples are the four sons born from the mind of Lord Brahma, Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan, and Sanat Kumar. Being always immersed in transcendental knowledge of Sri Hari, they wander here and there, unconnected to the creation of the material universe. The second type is invested with a portion of the Lord's external potency, or Maya Shakti, to perform acts such as creation. This refers to Lord Brahma, the grandfather of this universe, whom Sri Bhagwan invests with his Maya Shakti to accomplish the creation of the material world. In Sri Bhagavatamrit Gana, Śrīla Cakravartī Ṭhākura has identified the four Kumaras as Leela-avataras, or pastime expansions, and Sri Brahma as a Guna avatara. In this way, the ontology of sentient beings can be easily understood. Text 3i. Although Sri Vishnu and Shiva are non-different, only Sri Vishnu is to be worshipped. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. As they are both in the category of independent controllers, it is established conclusively that Sri Vishnu and Lord Shiva are non-different. Nevertheless, for the practitioner who is free from the material desires, the subject of who is to be worshipped and who is not to be worshipped should be discerned after carefully deliberating upon the object of worship's nirgunatva or sagunatva, that is, attribute of being beyond material nature or within material nature. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. It is understood from the previous section that Sri Vishnu and Lord Shiva are non-different in terms of tattva, solely because they are in the same category of sentience, or Ishvar Chaitanya. In other words, by accepting the mode of ignorance, the all-pervading sentient being Sri Vishnu, for the sake of pastimes, has become Shiva. It is understood that only Shiva accepts this material mode, not Sri Sadashiva. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura writes in his Sri Bhagavatamrit Gana, Sri Sadashiv is not a Guna avatara. Just like Sri Nārāyaṇa, who is transcendental to material nature, Sadashiv is a special expansion of Sri Krishna himself and the origin of the Guna avatara Shiva. Sri Sadashiv resides in Sadashiv Loka, above the causal ocean, which is beyond Maya, while the Guna avatara Shiva resides on Mount Kailasha. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura has established the oneness of Sri Vishnu and Lord Shiva from the perspective of their both being independent sentient beings. He now considers the matter further from the perspective of worship. A selfless sādhaka must determine his object of worship only after ascertaining whether or not his object of veneration is touched by the material modes. It was previously stated that Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma fulfill the desires of those who worship them with a yearning for the fruit of their worship. People who desire material wealth are naturally inclined to worship the demigods and goddesses who are within the material modes. But selfless sadhakas of bhakti do not have a trace of desire for any temporary, illusory object. They desire only the eternal treasure of prema, leaving aside the worship of Shiva and Brahma, who are of the material modes. They worship Sri Hari, who is transcendental to those modes and untouched by Maya. Because their worship is transcendental, they remain constantly immersed in relishing Sri Hari's names, forms, qualities, pastimes, and their ambrosial service to him. Not to speak of the worldly wealth, they would not accept even the 4 types of liberation, such as living on the same planet as Bhagwan or Salokya, if it were offered to them. Salokya sarishti samipya sarupya ekatvam apyut diyamanam na grahananti vinaman sevanam janaha. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 3:29-13. Śrīla Kapil Dev said, "My dear mother, despite being offered the various kinds of liberation, living on the same planet as me or Salokya, possessing the same opulence as me or Sarishti, residing near me or Samipya, possessing a form like mine or Sarupya, and merging into my effulgence or Ekatva or Sayujya, my pure devotees do not accept them. They accept only transcendental loving service to me." Those who worship the demigods and goddesses are materially motivated. Their reward is insignificant, temporary wealth and opulence, which ultimately results in suffering. Indeed, it is necessary for such motivated worshippers to remember that although the demigods and goddesses who are materially covered are easily pleased and thus bestow material wealth and opulence upon the worshipper, as soon as there is the slightest discrepancy in that worship, they curse him. Sometimes the demigods and goddesses fall into difficulty as a result of the benedictions they offer, having failed to anticipate the repercussions. We see in Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10.88 that Śrīmad Mahadev offered the demon Vrikasura the benediction that if Vrikasura placed his hand on someone's head, the person would die. Upon receiving this benediction, Vrikasura wanted to test it by placing his hand upon Mahadeva's head. Mahadev fled in fear and Vrikasura gave chase. After traversing the earth, Mahadev fled to the heavenly planets, but no demigod was able to give him refuge. Finally, he went to Vaikuntha. Beyond the material realm, Śrīla Nārāyaṇa, taking the form of a young Brahmin boy, asked Vrikasura why he had come so far. Upon hearing Vrikasura's story, Sri Nārāyaṇa said, "Because Lord Shiva was cursed by Daksha and has become a ghoul, constantly wandering about in the company of witches and ghosts. Put your hand on your head and see for yourself." Thus bewildered by Sri Nārāyaṇa's words, Vrikasura placed his hand on his head and immediately collapsed in a heap of ashes. Lord Brahma also offered rare benedictions to the demon Hiranyakashipu without considering the repercussions. Bhagwan Sri Narasimha-dev descended and killed Hiranyakashipu while carefully protecting the integrity of the benedictions given by Lord Brahma. He reproached Lord Brahma for offering such boons to the demon, likening it to feeding milk to a serpent. This also has been described in Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Text 3J. Sometimes a living entity invested with the potency of Bhagwan becomes Shiva. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. The difference between Sri Vishnu and Brahma lies in the distinct type of sentience. the sentience of an independent controller or Ishwar Chaitanya, and the sentience of a dependent living entity or Jeev Chaitanya. In some places, Puranic statements highlight the non-difference between Sri Vishnu and Brahma. But it is to be understood that this is like the non-difference between the sun and the Suryakanta Mani, a gemstone imbued with the potency of the sun. In certain lifetimes of Brahma, Mahakalpas, a living entity invested with the potency of the Lord or Shaktya-Vesha attains the attributes of Shiva. That is, just as Lord Brahma is classed as a Jiva or minute spirit soul, Lord Shiva is sometimes classed as a Jiva also. It has been said in Hari Bhakti Vilas 1.73. Anyone who sees the best of divine beings, Sri Nārāyaṇa, to be the same as Rudra or Brahma is certainly an atheist. This statement can be reconciled by considering Rudra to have the same characteristic as Brahma. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. We should understand that Sri Vishnu and Brahma are distinguished by their sentience. In other words, Sri Vishnu is an independent sentient being, while Lord Brahma, being Jeev Tattva, is a dependent sentient being. Some Puranas highlight the non-difference between Sri Vishnu and Brahma, but it should be understood that this non-difference is like that between sun and the Suryakanta jewel, which is invested with the potency of the sun. The jewel and the sun are separate objects, therefore there is a permanent difference between them. But when the power of the sun is reflected in the Suryakanta gemstone, then the gemstone is able to burn objects such as cloth. Because the Suryakanta gemstone is invested with the burning quality of the sun, it is considered to be non-different from the sun. Similarly, because Lord Vishnu has partially invested Brahma with the material potency to create, some Puranas describe Sri Vishnu and Brahma to be non-different from each other. In truth, however, they are not identical, as Brahma is a dependent sentient being. Moreover, although Sri Vishnu and Lord Shiva are described as non-different, independent sentient beings, during some lifetimes of Brahma, a Jiva who is invested with the special potency of the Lord performs the activities of Shiva. Therefore, Sri Laghu Bhagavatamrita 2.27 states, just like Brahma, Shiva is also sometimes a Jiva or Jeev Tattva. The second Namaprada enjoins that those who see a difference between the names, forms, qualities and pastimes of Lord Vishnu and those of Lord Shiva are offenders to the holy name. Nonetheless, it has been written elsewhere. In Hari Bhakti Vilas 1.73, one who considers Brahma and Rudra or Shiva to be on an equal level with Lord Nārāyaṇa is certainly an atheist. Regarding Sri Vishnu and Shiva as different from each other constitutes an offense to the holy name. But one who regards them as identical becomes an atheist. These scriptural statements appear contradictory. One may reconcile them, however, by understanding that these statements refer to the fault of regarding that form of Shiva who is in the category of Ishvara as different from Sri Vishnu, or the fault of regarding that form of Shiva who is in the category of a Jiva as non-different from Sri Vishnu. In the same way, although Brahma generally belongs to the category of a Jiva, Scripture mentions that sometimes an expansion of Sri Hari may also assume the post of Brahma. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 4.24.29 states, a Jiva who properly executes his occupational duty within the Varnashram Dharma system for 100 births without fruitive desire becomes qualified to occupy the post of Brahma. Thus, at the beginning of creation, a qualified Jiva manifests from the lotus navel of Garbhodakshai Vishnu and occupies the post of Brahma. Bhagwan invests him with the potency of creation. In that age or kalpa in which there is no such qualified jiva, Sri Hari personally takes the post of a Gunavatara, becoming Brahma and performing the work of creation. He is then called Hiranyagarbha Brahma, or that Brahma who is in the category of Ishvara. Text 3k. Confusing the position of Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu, the second offense to the holy name. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Without thoroughly reflecting on the spiritual truths that have been described thus far, some persons could wrangle as follows. Shri Vishnu is the Supreme Lord, not Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is the Supreme Lord, not Lord Vishnu. We are one-pointed worshippers of Shri Vishnu, and we will not even glance at Lord Shiva. We are one-pointed worshippers of Lord Shiva, and we will not even look toward Shri Vishnu. One whose intelligence is engrossed in debate in this way only makes offences to the holy name. By the ordinance of Bhagwan, such an offender may obtain the association of an exalted saintly personality who is conversant with all spiritual truths. He then becomes enlightened on this topic and develops faith that the Swarupa of Lord Shiva is non-different from that of Lord Vishnu. Following this, exclusively through Nam Sankirtan, he becomes free from this above-mentioned offense to the holy name. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. While raising the topic that Lord Shiva's name, form, etc. are independent of or different from those of Sri Vishnu, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura clearly describes the cause and the method by which one can become free from this aparādha. The root cause of offense to Bhagavad Tattva is a lack of understanding Bhagwan's intrinsic form and nature or Swarupa. In regard to Tattva Vastu or transcendental truth, the teaching is that one certainly commits an aparādha when one misunderstands the nature of Tattva Vastu, taking it to be something else. Generally, those who do not thoroughly reflect on Vishnu Tattva and Shiv Tattva and the correlation between them, in other words, those who do not have the good fortune of associating with saints conversant with such transcendental truth and hearing from them about it, will commit this second aparādha. Those who worship Vishnu think Shri Vishnu is the one supreme controller or Ishvara, Shiva is not. We are his exclusive devotees and will not take darshan of Lord Shiva. On the other hand, those who worship Shiva think Shiva is the one supreme controller, Vishnu is not. We are the exclusive devotees of Lord Shiva and will not take darshan of Lord Vishnu. Those with such a belligerent attitude commit aparādha. It was previously mentioned that aparādha is an act that displeases one's worshipful deity. When the worshippers of Shri Vishnu and those of Lord Shiva speculate about the difference between the worshipful lords, those lords become displeased. Will a person be pleased by a servant who attends to one limb while piercing or giving pain to another? Srimad Mahadev is indeed a part of Shri Vishnu. To consider him different from Lord Vishnu will invariably lead to aparādha. Now, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura explains the method to mitigate the offense. Lack of knowledge of Vishnu Tattva and Shiva Tattva is the root cause of this aparādha. As long as one is devoid of proper knowledge, it cannot be nullified. If a person committing this offense is fortunate to receive the association of and to hear from a realized saint who is well versed in the actual truth regarding Vishnu Tattva and Shiv Tattva, he will have true realization of spiritual reality. He will then understand that Vishnu Tattva and Shiva Tattva are non-different. This is because true knowledge of the nature of Bhagwan is possible only through the association and mercy of sadhus. The Upanishads also enunciate this conclusion. Katha Upanishad concludes with a description of the incomprehensibility of Brahma. In other words, it shows how Brahma is beyond the reach of mind and speech. How then can Brahma possibly be understood? In answer to this question, it explains. Indeed, Brahma can never be attained by the mind, words, eyes, or any other sense organ. How can Brahma be understood? In answer, it is said, Brahma can be understood by keeping the close association of saints who are faithful. Katha Upanishad 2.3.12. In Bhagavad Gita 4.34, Shri Krishna said to Arjuna, Updekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattva darshinaha. O Arjuna, persons who are conversant with spiritual reality will enlighten you with knowledge of Brahma. By this, it is understood that no matter how expert one becomes in studying and understanding the revealed scriptures, there is no possibility of gaining true knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead until one receives the association and mercy of great personalities who are endowed with direct realization and vision of the absolute truth. But it is also not guaranteed that this aparādha will be destroyed upon receiving true knowledge of Vishnu Tattva and Shiv Tattva from such personalities. The real atonement for this aparādha is remorse. If one performs Nam Sankirtan with repentance, taking shelter exclusively of Nam Prabhu, this offense may be eradicated. Text 3L. Blasphemy of the revealed Vedic literatures, the fourth offense to the holy name. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Some persons blaspheme the Shrutis that recommend the path of fruitive action or karma and monistic knowledge or jnana, saying, these Shrutis do not even touch devotional service to Bhagwan. They are superficial and thus abhorrent. If rather than using their speech in this way to blaspheme the Shrutis, they use it to repeatedly extol those same Shrutis and their adherents, all the while remaining immersed in voluble Nam Sankirtan, they can be absolved of the fourth offense to the holy name, to blaspheme the Vedic literatures. If by immense good fortune such offenders to the Vedic literatures obtain the association of exalted saintly personalities who are conversant with the full import of the Shrutis and hear from them, the offenders can understand that these supremely compassionate Shrutis are meant for wayward people who are strongly attached to sense gratification and unqualified for the path of bhakti. The Shrutis endeavor to bring such people to the path sanctioned by scripture. With this understanding, the aparādha arising from such blasphemy is eradicated by appropriate efforts. The causes and destruction of the other 6 aparādhas can also be understood in accordance with the elucidations of the first 4 offenses. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Now, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura presents the 4th offense to the holy name, Shruti-Shastra Ninda, blasphemy of the Vedic literatures. He discusses its cause and the means by which it can be eradicated. There are many varieties of Shrutis. Some establish the path of devotion to Bhagwan, while others establish the paths of jnana and karma. In this way, by describing the activities of yajna and so forth, they sanction the many varieties of material enjoyment available in the heavenly planets. It is completely impossible for those who have taken to the path of bhajan or Bhagavad Bhakti to blaspheme those Shrutis that promote the path of Bhakti. This is because faith or shraddha means having unflinching conviction in the words of the scriptures. Such faith is the very first step on the path of Bhakti. It is therefore impossible for devotees who have taken shelter of the path of Bhakti and who have faith in Shastra to blaspheme Shastras about the path of Bhakti. Nonetheless, there is a chance that they may blaspheme those Shrutis that promote the paths of karma and jnana. Having understood that worldly and heavenly objectives and even liberation are insignificant, some who have taken to the path of bhakti become angry when they see that certain Shrutis as well as scriptures that follow the Shrutis propound karma and jnana without describing or praising the practices of bhakti, such as Shravan and Kirtan. Since these Shrutis do not touch on bhakti, these devotees consider them to be averse to bhakti or bahirmukha and reprehensible. Those who think like this commit the fourth offense to the holy name. The Shrutis that propound karma and jnana actually make a specific endeavor to bring those qualified for karma and jnana to the entrance of the temple of bhakti. Those who have attained transcendental faith as a result of receiving the association and mercy of the Lord's devotee are eligible for bhakti. Shraddhavan Janahai Bhakti Adhikari. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22.64. Persons deprived of such fortune desire the happiness of Brahma Sayujya or liberation by merging into the effulgence of Brahma. Scriptures dealing with the path of jnana engage them in the practice of jnana and thus guide them on the path leading to the bliss of impersonal Brahma, which is devoid of variety. When those pursuing the path of jnana attain the association of pure devotees, they become enchanted by the unlimitedly variated rapture of Bhagavad rasa. Since the happiness of jnana or impersonal liberation is devoid of variety, they therefore deem jnana insignificant. Forsaking that path, they take shelter of the path of bhakti and thus become blessed. This is the actual intention of the jnana division of the Shrutis. In the same way, the section of the Shrutis dealing with karma allures wanton, intoxicated sense enjoyers who are not qualified for bhakti toward the immediate sweet pleasure of the heavenly planets and engages them in the path of materially motivated pious action or sakama karma, in which they perform acts such as making offerings or yag and oblations or yagna into a sacred fire. In this way, the Shrutis strive to bring such people to the path of bhakti. The implication is that if wayward persons engrossed in sense pleasure are not encouraged to attain heavenly enjoyment and the like, they will become opposed to religiosity or dharma, prescribed duty or karma, and so on, and thus become even more undisciplined. Mercifully, the section of the Shrutis dealing with pious action or karma kanda gives instructions to such persons to bring them to the path of karma. In the course of performing the pious acts described in these scriptures, such as making offerings and offering oblations into a sacred fire, these people will certainly receive the association of an exalted devotee. As a result, they understand that the results of karma are actually a source of misery. Eventually, by the mercy of a sadhu, they become blessed and take shelter of the path of bhakti. For this reason, blasphemy of these most merciful Shrutis constitutes an aparādha. If the sādhaka of bhakti happens to commit this offense, then he can be freed from it by receiving the association of a great saint who comprehends the true import of Shrutis dealing with karma and jnana. By that saint's mercy, he can understand the actual intention of those Shrutis and must then glorify them with the same mouth that blasphemed them. He should repeatedly honor those who engage in karma and jnana under the shelter of those scriptures. Moreover, he should loudly call out the holy name. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura has lucidly described the first 4 of the 10 offenses to the holy name. First, to blaspheme saintly persons. Second, to consider Lord Shiva's name, form and so forth as independent of those of Sri Vishnu. Third, to disobey the spiritual master. And fourth, to blaspheme the Vedic scriptures. He explains that the causes of the remaining 6 types of aparādha to the holy name and the means to mitigate them are to be understood in the same way as described for the first 4 aparādhas. Using the methodology of the esteemed author, we shall now describe the emergence of the remaining aparādhas and the means to remove them. To consider the glories of the holy name to be an exaggeration is the fifth aparādha. The unequal glories of Sri Harinam are found throughout Shastra. To regard these glories to be more praise is to consider the glories of the holy name to be exaggerated. The scriptures and the great saints proclaim that whatever may be said about the glories of Sri Harinam cannot amount to even a drop of the ocean of Harinam's glories. To think that Shastra's glorification of the holy name is meant for the general public so as to arouse an interest in Nama constitutes the grave aparādha of considering the glories of the holy name to be exaggeration or artha-vāda. Actually, the glories of the holy name found in the words of Shastra or spoken by great devotees are insignificant like a tiny firefly before the sun. No one is capable of fully describing the glories of the holy name, so there is no reason to conjecture that the Shastra's descriptions of these glories are an exaggeration. It is because a person lacks the association of an exalted personality who properly understands the glories of the holy name that he commits the offense of considering those glories to be mere hyperbole. If that offender gets the association of such a saintly person who is devoid to chanting the holy name and hears the glories of Harinama from his mouth, his contaminated mind will be purified. Then, when one takes exclusive shelter of Nama Prabhu, chants incessantly and feels great remorse, this aparādha will be gradually dispelled. To think that the holy name of the Lord are imaginary is the sixth aparādha. Mayavadis and materialistic followers of karma consider the supreme truth to be impersonal Brahma, devoid of form, potency, and a name. Those who think the great rishis have fabricated some names like Rama and Krishna just to serve their own purpose are offenders. Harinam is not imaginary, it is eternal and spiritual. Nam Prabhu manifests only upon spiritualized senses through the process of bhakti. This teaching is imparted by the bona fide spiritual master and the Vedic scriptures. Consequently, Harinam must be accepted as the ultimate truth. One who thinks Nama Prabhu to be imaginary can never obtain his mercy. To commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name is the seventh aparādha. By the performance of Nam Sankirtan, all types of obstacles and anarthas are dissipated. But if someone utters Harinam and repeatedly performs sinful activities on the strength of his chanting, his problems and obstacles will not be dispelled. Rather, he will commit a most fearful aparādha. This holy name is composed of Shuddha-sattva or pure transcendental goodness. Uttering Harinam with faith will dispel all of the obstacles and impediments caused by weakness of the heart, Hriday Daurbalya, and will not be inclined to commit sinful acts. Rather, the desire to sin and even ignorance will be removed. If a devotee, due to previous impressions or sanskaras, inadvertently commits a sinful act, there is no need for him to atone for it. Rather, Sri Hari, who is present in his heart, will remove that sin. Someone may think, Harinama purifies one of all sins, so there is no harm if I sin. My chanting of Sri Hari's sacred name will remove my sin. Repeatedly committing sinful acts on the strength of the holy name leads to Nama Aparādha. The offender must repent. Alas, what a grievous offender I am! I have used the supremely powerful, transcendental Harinama, which easily bestows direct service to Bhagwan and prema for him, to commit detestable, sinful acts. Alas, I will not be delivered even after suffering millions upon millions of torments in the hellish planets. If one sincerely laments in this way and incessantly engages in Harinam Sankirtan while offering obeisances and serving the Vaishnavas, this aparādha will be dispelled. To consider religiosity, vows, offering of oblations into fire, and other ordinary pious activities to be equivalent to chanting the holy name is the eighth aparādha. All our Goswamis have said, and it has been written in all the Shrutis, Smritis, and other scriptures, that there is no difference between the Nama or the holy name and Nami or the possessor of the name Sri Hari. The holy name is the direct manifestation of Sri Hari in the form of syllables and is therefore not accessible to the material senses. The holy name is self-manifesting. When the practitioner becomes inclined to utter Harinama, it will directly manifest on his tongue. To consider the performance of mundane pious activities such as offering oblations into fire to be equal to the omnipotent, self-effulgent Sri Harinam constitutes a grievous offense to Harinam. It is indicative of significant negligence in chanting the holy name. This offense will be dispelled by abandoning worldly company, faithfully hearing the glories of Harinama in the association of great devotees dedicated to chanting, surrendering oneself in a mood of repentance and ceaselessly uttering Harinama. Giving instructions on the chanting of the holy name to faithless persons constitutes the ninth aparādha. Only those with faith in the holy name are truly qualified to chant it. If one gives instructions on the holy name to faithless persons, they will neglect it. The names of Sri Krishna are everything, the sole treasure for all souls. If given to faithless, stool-eating hog-like sense enjoyers, they will not appropriately honor the priceless jewel of Harinama, but will fully neglect and reject it. This aparādha will ruin them and render the spiritual master who instructed them on the holy name an offender. Some people perform Nam Sankirtan loudly, but not with the intention of making a particular person hear it, even though it is heard by both the faithful and the faithless. The loud performance of Kirtan is not being discouraged here. Rather, the meaning is to discourage one from imparting instructions on Harinam to one who lacks faith. When faith awakens in the heart of the disciple, instructions on chanting the holy name may be given to him, but is never appropriate to instruct faithless persons on the holy name. If one who commits such an offense remorsefully takes full shelter of Sri Harinam and chants continuously, this aparādha will be dispelled. To have developed an affection for the holy name even after hearing its unlimited glories is the 10th aparādha. Some persons, despite hearing the glories of Harinam, still regard the perishable body to be their identity and objects related to the body to be their own. Those with this false ego remain intoxicated by sense gratification and, as a result, they do not respect Harinam but become offenders to Nama. One who has committed this aparādha should remain in the company of saintly persons and serve them, while chanting Harinam with full remorse. By doing so, one will develop love for Bhagwan's names and this offense will be eradicated. Text 4. 4a. Anarthas that arise from the practice of Bhakti. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Next, anarthas that arise from Bhakti are discussed. These anarthas spring like parasitic creepers from the main branch of the wish-fulfilling vine of Bhakti and awaken the yearning for wealth or labha, adoration or puja, and recognition or pratishtha. They arise from the imperfect performance of Bhakti, and the heart of the practitioner is tainted by the influence. In this way, they grow so extensively that they can even stunt the main branch of the creeper of Bhakti. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. At the beginning of this third shower of nectar, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura has given an elaborate description of anarthas. They are of 4 types. First, those arising from impious activities. Second, those arising from pious activities. Third, those arising from offenses. Fourth, those arising from bhakti. The author has already described the first 3 and is now describing the 4th. Such anarthas are known as bhakti-uddha because they arise from the imperfect practice of bhakti. Everyone is naturally attracted to those who engage in bhajan of Sri Hari. Therefore, when a devotee is doing bhajan, automatically all types of wealth, respect, worship and possession come to him. They pose formidable obstacles to the practitioner's progress in bhajan, the path leading to prema. The sadhakas desiring to attain prema should be extremely cautious to protect themselves from desires for these things and proceed on the path of bhakti with great humility and a feeling of worthlessness. Once the desires for health, adoration, recognition taint the heart of a sadhaka, his devotional practice will only intensify these anarthas. For this reason, the bhakti-uttanarthas of wealth, adoration and recognition are said to be like the parasitic creepers or upshakhas of the root of the wish-fulfilling vine of bhakti. The upshakhas grow from the main tree. They stunt its growth by nourishing themselves with the water sprinkled on it and, taking its sap, eventually dry up. Similarly, the bhakti-uttanarthas of wealth, adoration and recognition taint the heart of a sadhaka with their tendencies and stunt the growth of original, wish-fulfilling vine of bhakti. In his instructions to Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, Śrīmad Mahaprabhu has said, Kintu yadi latar sange uthe upshakha bhukti mukti vansha jat asankyatar lekha निषिद्धाचार कूटिनाटी जीव हिंसन लाभ पूजा प्रतिष्ठा आदि जत उपशाखा गण से कजल पाइया उपशाखा बाड़ी जाए स्तब्ध हैया मूल शाखा बाड़ी ते न पाए प्रथमेई उपशाखार करिए छेदन तबे मूल शाखा बाड़ी जाए वृंदावन। श्री चैतन्य चरितामृत मध्य लीला 19.158 to 161. Sometimes, the parasitic creepers or upshakhas of the desire for enjoyment or liberation sprout alongside the vine of devotion. These upshakhas are unlimited. They include forbidden behavior, duplicity, violence to the other living entities, and the desire for wealth, fame, and recognition. They drink up all the water of the sadhaka's hearing and chanting. In this way, they are nourished and flourish, while the growth of the bhakti lata is impaired. An intelligent devotee must uproot a parasitic creeper as soon as he spots it, so that the original vine of devotion may flourish and reach the lotus feet of Sri Krishna in Vrindavan. Here, Śrīmad Mahaprabhu is saying that the desire for material enjoyment and liberation, as well as improper conduct, duplicity, harming other living entities, and desiring wealth, adoration, and recognition are called upshakhas. For the jivas, who are Sri Krishna's eternal servants, desires for anything other than him and devotion to him are nothing but duplicity. They represent the jiva's corrupt tendencies. When even one of these tendencies arises in the heart, many other such desires begin to take shelter there also, and it becomes full of ill longings. In such a condition, the desire for bhakti will disappear. With a heart full of desires for sense gratification, wealth and adoration and fame, the practitioner will engage in wicked, forbidden acts to obtain them, acts that are condemned in the scriptures, such as speaking lies and deceitful words, behaving with arrogance, harming others and stealing. Externally adorned with tilaka and tulasi neck beads, he mechanically goes through the motions of hearing and chanting. He puts on a show of humility to make sure that his wicked behavior does not come into public view and to avoid censor from the community of devotees. All the while, he is secretly engrossed in depraved activities and other kinds of duplicity. Finally, his heart fills with so much of that deceit that not even the slightest trace of desire for bhajan remains. Therefore, Śrīmad Mahaprabhu gives the instruction to first cut these parasitic creepers. The desires for material enjoyment and liberation may have already been cut, but it is extremely difficult to remove the desire for recognition or pratishtha. Śrīla Sanatana Gosvāmī writes in the epilogue of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, even if one has relinquished everything else, the desire for recognition, which is the root cause of all anarthas, is extremely difficult to give up. For this reason, the practitioner is to remain extra vigilant to save himself from the stool of this desire. When this desire for pratishtha finds a place in the heart, then pratishtha's most beloved companion, envy or matsarya, also takes shelter there. They cohabit because of their reciprocal conjugal mood. The dog-eating outcast of envy impregnates the witch of desire for recognition, who begets the twins, violence or himsa and jealousy or irsha. Their combined devastating dance completely destroys all good tendencies of the heart. And in such an impure heart, where is there room for the desire for bhakti? The sādhaka should therefore not desire honor or amani, but instead offer all respects to others or manad, thus carefully abandoning the desire for honor forever. Text 4b. The 5 stages of eradication of anarthas. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. The eradication of the 4 types of anarthas occurs in 5 stages. First, partial or ācāryas. Second, extensive or bahudesha-vartini. Third, almost complete or prayaki. Fourth, complete or purna. And fifth, absolute or atyantiki. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Within the stages of bhakti sadhana mentioned from Shraddha to the attainment of prema, there is a stage of anartha-nivritti or cessation of impediments to bhakti. Now, the removal or nivritti of these 4 types of anarthas is being explained. These anarthas do not vanish immediately, but are eradicated in 5 stages. That is, ācāryas-vartini, bahudesha-vartini, prayaki, purna and atyantiki. First, ācāryas-vartini. The partial clearance of anarthas can be likened to the deduction of 2 or 4 annas from a rupee. 1 anna equals 1/16th of a rupee. This stage is called ācāryas-vartini-nivritti. Second, bahudesha-vartini. The extensive eradication of anarthas can be likened to the deduction of 12 annas from a rupee. This stage is called bahudesha-vartini-nivritti. Third, prayaki. The almost complete clearance of all anarthas with only a little remaining can be likened to the deduction of 98 paisa from a rupee. 1 paisa equals 1/100th of a rupee. This stage is called prayaki anartha nivritti. Fourth, purna. The complete eradication of anarthas with nothing remaining can be likened to the full deduction of 16 annas from a rupee. This stage is called purna anartha nivritti. Fifth, atyantiki. The absolute annihilation of anarthas sees no possibility of anarthas regenerating again. In the previous stage of purna nivritti, anarthas are destroyed, but there is still a possibility that they may regenerate for some reason. At atyantiki nivritti, however, there is no possibility of this happening. Text 4c. The sequence in which anarthas arising from aparādha are vanquished. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Gramo daktaha pato bhagnaha, which means the village is burned and the cloth is torn. According to this logic, after commencing the practice of devotional service or bhajan kriya, the eradication of anarthas arising from past aparādhas is partial. Upon developing firm faith or nishtha, the eradication is extensive. When one develops transcendental affection or rati for Sri Bhagwan, the eradication is almost complete. When the sun of love of Godhead Prema rises, its destruction is complete. And when one obtains the lotus feet of Bhagwan, that is, becomes his direct associate, the eradication of this anartha is absolute. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura illustrates the point under discussion with the logic Gramo dagdaha pato bhagnaha. The village is burned, the cloth is torn. From these statements we understand that the village was only partially consumed by fire and that the cloth is now in 2 or more pieces. It does not indicate that the village or cloth is destroyed entirely. Likewise, after commencing bhajan kriya, which we have discussed previously, there is a gradual eradication of anarthas arising from offences or aparādha uddha anarthas. But this removal is only partial, ekadesha-vartini. It is not complete. Similarly, when nishtha arises in the sādhaka, the removal of anarthas is extensive or bahudesha-vartini. When rati or bhava develops, the destruction of anarthas is almost complete or prayaki. When bhava condenses, it is called prema. At this stage, the devotee's anartha nivritti is complete or purna, and when the devotee who is continuously engaged in love-laden bhakti receives the mercy of bhakti, he obtains direct service to the lotus feet of Sri Bhagwan. At this stage, the eradication of anarthas is absolute or atyantiki. There is not even the slightest chance that they will return. Here, one may ask if the tendency to commit aparādha can possibly arise in the heart of a devotee in whom rati or prema has arisen. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1.3.54 explains, Bhavo apya bhava mayati Krishna preshtha paradhataha Abha satancha shanakairin Nyuna jati yatamapi. By an offense against Krishna or Krishna's dearest devotee, even bhava will disappear if the offense is serious. That bhava will become a shadow of a bhava or bhav, abhas, if the offense is medium, and will become a bhava of a lesser category if the offense is slight. A gorilla named Divid was an associate of Sri Ramachandra, but because he had committed an offense at the feet of Sri Lakshman, he underwent many torments and was eventually killed at the hands of Sri Baladevji at the end of Dwapar Yuga. By such precedents, the severity of committing an offense at the lotus feet of a great devotee is understood. It is not impossible for those sadhakas in whom bhav has arisen or jatarati sadhakas and those in whom prema has arisen or jata prema sadhakas to commit offences to a pure devotee. Only when the premi bhakta receives the full mercy of Sri Bhagwan and obtains direct darshan of him and service to him does the absolute cessation or atyantiki nivritti of aparādha uddhanarthas take place, with no possibility of aparādha being committed again. Text 4d. The offense of Chitraketu Maharaj is in truth not an offense. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. We hear that once Maharaj Chitraketu committed an offense to a pure devotee, even after receiving the audience of Bhagwan. His committing an offense was not only apparent, however, it was not real. Since the same treasure of loving devotion to Bhagwan remained in his heart, both as an associate of the Lord and as Vritasura, there is no difference between these two distinctive features of his. This is the conclusion or Siddhanta. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. After attaining Bhagwan, the cessation of anarthas arising from aparādha is absolute or atyantiki. This means that it is impossible to commit an offense to an exalted devotee or mahad aparādha. Here a question may arise. If this is so, then how did Chitraketu Maharaj, even after attaining Bhagwan, develop the propensity to offend Srimad Mahadev? In response, the revered author says that although we hear that Chitraketu Maharaj committed aparādha to a great soul, this is not the reality. The offense was only apparent. It is said that the result of committing an offense to a pure devotee is that one's bhakti diminishes or vanishes. Parvati cursed Chitraketu Maharaj and he became a demon, but still his bhakti remained unaffected. Phalena phala karanam anumiyate. We can infer the cause by the result alone. Therefore, Chitraketu Maharaj did not actually commit mahad aparādha. The history of Chitraketu Maharaj is narrated in the 6th canto of Śrīmad Bhagavatam, chapters 14 to 16. He was the sovereign ruler of the land of Shurasena. Despite possessing unmatched royal opulence, he remained downcast because he had no son. King Chitraketu had accepted the hands of 10 million beautiful women in the hope of having a son, but he remained without progeny. One day, by the desire of Bhagwan, the great sage Angira Rishi came to his royal palace. The king revealed his anguish and implored him repeatedly for a son. Maharishi Angira prepared a charu, a sweet rice used in oblation, and offered it into a sacred sacrificial fire. He fed the remnants to the principal queen, Kritadyuti, saying, "May this produce a son who will give the king both happiness and distress." He then left. After eating the sweet rice, the queen became pregnant and in due course gave birth to a most beautiful baby boy. The child began to grow just like a waxing crescent moon. Naturally, King Chitraketu's attachment to Queen Kritadyuti increased. Seeing this, the other queens became stricken with envy and hatred, and they killed the child by feeding him poison. The great sage had previously stated that the king would have a child that would cause him happiness and distress. Upon hearing of his son's death, Mahārāja Chitraketu became overwhelmed with sorrow. At that time, the supremely merciful Sri Narada arrived, along with Sri Angira Rishi. Sri Narad gave the king much instruction and offered him solace. Nonetheless, it was extremely difficult for the king to understand his teachings. Finally, those great sages summoned the soul of the departed child and had the child pacify the king by imparting instructions about the unsubstantial nature of this material world and the fleeting nature of relationships between the father and son, mother and father, and so forth. Becoming detached from this world, the king engaged in bhajan under the direction of Sri Narada and achieved the direct audience of Lord Sankarshan, who, being pleased with him, instructed him on the fundamental truths of dharma and jnana. The king ascended a divine airplane and became the ruler of the Vidyadharas, wandering freely in the valleys of Mount Sumeru. Vidyadharas is a race of celestial beings who are attendants of Lord Shiva and who possess material mystic knowledge. One day, Maharaj Chitraketu saw Bhagwan Sri Shankar in an assembly of great munis, siddhas and charanas, with his arm around Parvati, who was seated on his lap. As Maharaj Chitraketu came closer, he laughed loudly in the presence of Parvati Devi. "Just see the situation of the great instructor of dharma, the guru of the whole world, Sri Mahadeva," he said. "In such a learned assembly, he has placed his wife on his lap? How shameless!" Bhagwan Sri Shankara knew that Chitraketu was a dear devotee of Bhagwan, so he simply smiled and said nothing. Parvati Devi, however, could not tolerate Chitraketu's behavior, his ridicule and disrespect. She therefore immediately cursed him. "You will take birth in a most sinful demoniac race. In this way, you will never be able to disrespect great souls due to having no contact with them." King Chitraketu was not even slightly distressed by this. To please Parvati, he glorified her, accepted the curse, offered obeisance, and went on his way. He did not retaliate. His power was such that had he so desired, he could have cursed Parvati, but he did not. Having been damned by the goddess, Chitraketu took birth as the son of Twista Rishi and became known as Vitrasura. His body was enormous and terrifying, and all the demigods feared him. During a great battle with the demigods, Indra, carrying a thunderbolt made from the bones of Dadhiji Rishi, came to kill him. Ready to fight, Indra appeared before Vritrasura, riding the elephant Airavata. Sri Bhagwan had instructed Indra to kill Vritrasura with a thunderbolt weapon, but it fell from his hand. Vritrasura picked up the weapon, but being greatly devoted to dharma, he personally returned it to Indra, saying, "Kill me with this. I'm not afraid, not even of time. Bhagwan Sri Shyamasundar is before me, and I consider it my great fortune to be able to relinquish this demoniac material body as I gaze upon him." While having direct realization of Bhagwan, he prayed. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 6:11-24-27. Aham haretav pade kumula dasanudaso bhavitasmi bhoya manha smatareshu pater gunaste granit vakkarm karotu kayaha nana kaprishtham na cha paryamishtham na sarvabhaumam na rasadhipatyam na yoga siddhira punarbhavam va samanjastva virahayya kangshe ajatu paksha eva mataram khaga stannam yathavat satara shudhartaha priyam priyeva vyashutam vishanna mano arvindaksh didrikshate tvam mamottam shloka janeshu saksham samsar chakre bhramata swakarmabhi tvanmayaya atmaja dargeheshva asakta chittasya nanath bhuyat. O Lord, please bestow such mercy upon me that in my next birth I may obtain the opportunity to exclusively serve the servants who have taken shelter of your lotus feet. O beloved of my life, Pranavallabha, may my mind always remember your all auspicious qualities. May speech always describe the glories of these qualities, and my body always remain engaged in your service. O source of all good fortune, I do not desire the heavenly planets, the realm of Brahma, or rulership over the earth or lower planetary systems. Nor do I desire any mystic perfection. I do not even want liberation if it means I would have to give you up. O lotus-eyed one, my heart is restless to have darshan of you. Just as featherless chicks eagerly look out for their mother, as hungry calves are anxious to drink the milk of their mothers, or as a lover separated from her beloved because he is in a foreign land longs to meet him. Lord, I do not want liberation. I am not concerned if I have to repeatedly wander throughout the vicious circle of birth and death as a result of my actions. But wherever I go, and in whichever species I may take birth, please grant me the loving friendship of your dear devotees. Master, I only wish that I may never have any relationship with those who are bewildered by your illusory potency and attached to the house, body, wife, and sons. Thus, despite being in the body of a demon, Chitraketu or Vritrasura not only remained immersed in the remembrance of Bhagwan, but also achieved direct darshan of him. Sri Jiva Goswami has quoted these 4 verses in his Preeti Sandarbha, Anuched 72, and in conclusion writes, the meaning here is that Vritrasura's words reveal his immaculate prema for Bhagwan. This is why the account of the killing of Vritrasura is regarded as special within Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Other Puranas also accept these prayers as uppermost among the features of Śrīmad Bhagavatam. The Matsya Purana also states that the killing of Vritrasura has been described in the work entitled Bhagavad Puran. Text 4e. Jaya and Vijay voluntarily accepted an unfavorable mood towards Bhagwan. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Furthermore, the cause of Jaya and Vijaya's offense was a desire born of their burgeoning prema, which they expressed as follows. O Master, O Lord of Lords Nārāyaṇa, we cannot see anywhere anyone powerful enough to fulfill your desire for battle. Even though we have the power to do so, we cannot oppose you, as we are devoid of an antagonistic mood towards you. Since your desire to fight is not fulfilled, please somehow awaken in us an inimical mood, so that you may taste the satisfaction of combat. We cannot tolerate that you experience even the slightest diminution in the fulfillment of your autonomous desires. Therefore, we, your two-order carriers, pray that even if you have to forcibly curb your quality of being affectionate to your devotees, Bhakta Vatsalya, kindly fulfill our prayer. If one ever develops an offensive mentality towards the description of Chitraketu Maharaj or Jaya or Vijay and concludes that Chitraketu Maharaj or Jaya or Vijay really committed an offense, one should overcome this by intelligent deliberation. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 3rd Canto, Chapter 5 describes the story of the 4 Kumaras headed by Sri Sanak Muni, cursing the associates of the Lord in Vaikuntha, Jaya and Vijay. Although it appears that Jaya and Vijay committed aparādha to great souls, it was in truth triggered by their desire to please Bhagwan with their service. Jaya and Vijay, the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, were thinking that everyone gives the Lord of Vaikuntha, Sri Nārāyaṇa, happiness by serving him. But no one is able to facilitate the all-powerful Sri Nārāyaṇa's tasting the mellow of combat or yuddha rasa. No warrior in the universe is equal to Sri Nārāyaṇa. We have immense strength, but we cannot help him taste the rasa of fighting because our mood is not to oppose him. Without the mood of enmity, this is not possible, they thought. Therefore, they both approached Sri Nārāyaṇa and prayed, O Lord, our sole desire is for you to taste the rasa of combat. Because you are complete in yourself, we cannot tolerate your experiencing any lacking in the fulfillment of your desires. All devotees serve you with a favorable mood, and so no one desires to help you taste the rasa of fighting. Lord, we pray that you mercifully bestow upon us a mood averse to you, so that we can fulfill your desire to taste satisfaction in combat. To satisfy their desire, Sri Nārāyaṇa, the wish-fulfilling desire tree of his devotees, inspired by the Munis headed by Sanak Kumar to come to Vaikuntha. Solely due to Sri Nārāyaṇa's inspiration, Jai and Vijay blocked the sages from entering Vaikuntha. As a result, the 4 sages cursed them to take birth in a race of demons. By enabling Sri Nārāyaṇa to taste yuddha rasa, they considered their lives successful. If the inclination to serve in an adverse mood ever arises in any sādhaka, as it did with Sri Chitraketu or Jai or Vijay, then, by dint of his intelligence, he should immediately cast such an offensive thought from his mind. The transcendental behavior of Bhagwan's eternal associates is inconceivable for the common people, and it is never proper for a sadhaka to imitate it. Text 4f. The sequence in which anarthas arising from impious activities and bhakti are vanquished. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. The eradication of anarthas arising from impiety or dushkrit jata and piety sukrit jata is as follows. After the stage of bhajan kriya, eradication is almost complete, that is praiki. At nishtha, the eradication is complete or purna. At asakti, eradication is absolute or atyantiki. Similarly, the eradication of anarthas arising from bhakti or bhakti jata is as follows. At bhajan kriya, eradication is partial or ekdeshvartini. At nishtha, eradication is complete or purna. At ruchi, eradication is absolute or atyantiki. Experienced and realized devotees have ascertained and revealed this after thorough deliberation. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura previously described that the cessation of anarthas take place in 5 successive stages, and that the sādhaka thus gradually becomes free from the most prominent hindrance to bhakti, anarthas arising from aparādha. Now, he is describing the sequential freedom from the other types of anarthas. At the stage of bhajan kriya, the cessation of anarthas arising from sinful activities such as attachment to material objects, hatred and absorption in worldly objects is almost complete or prayaki. Upon attaining the stage of nishtha, the cessation of anarthas arising from sinful activities is complete or purna, and at the stage of asakti, the cessation of such anarthas is absolute or atyantiki, and there remains no chance of their sprouting again. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura has not separately specified the sequence in which anarthas arising from pious activities are nullified. Absorption in the 5 types of sufferings coming from ignorance is an anartha arising from sinful activities, while absorption in material enjoyment is an anartha arising from pious activities. When one develops attachment or asakti to Sri Hari, there is no further chance of becoming absorbed in either material happiness or distress. Thus, it is understood that anarthas arising from sinful acts and those arising from pious acts are eradicated in the same sequence. After this, the author delineates the sequence of nullification for anarthas arising from the practice of bhakti or bhakti ut anarthas, such as desires from material gain or labha, worship or puja, and recognition or pratishtha. Upon engaging in the practice of bhakti, at the stage of bhajan kriya, there is a partial cessation, ācāryas, of the anarthas that arise from the practice of bhakti. This is because this type of anartha manifests from bhajan kriya. At the stage of nishtha, the cessation is complete or purna, and at the stage of ruchi, the cessation is absolute or atyantiki. In other words, upon developing ruchi for bhajan, the desire for gain, worship and recognition is automatically dispelled. This has been concluded by those with vast knowledge and experience after deliberating on this topic. The purport is that anarthas do not diminish before the stage of bhajan kriya. Anarthas gradually begin to diminish after one takes to the practice of bhajan and becomes steadfast. If one becomes lax in bhajan, one's anarthas will intensify, so much so that the desire to perform bhajan will disappear altogether. It is therefore most essential to remain engaged in bhajan, which is attained after developing faith or shraddha and receiving the association of sadhus or sadhu sangha. Without such engagement, the cessation of anarthas is impossible, and until one's anarthas are removed, it is entirely futile even to think one can attain Bhagavan. Text 5a. Śrīnāma Prabhu conceals his power from offenders to the holy name, being pleased with them. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. When the sun-like holy name rises even once, a multitude of sins, which are like an ocean of darkness, are immediately destroyed. Padyavali 16. By hearing the name of Sri Bhagwan just once, even a wicked, dog-eating outcast becomes liberated from material existence. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 6.26.44. In the scriptures, there are hundreds of similar evidences. Furthermore, the history of Ajamil clearly demonstrates that simply chanting a semblance of the holy name or namabhasa just once destroys all of one's anarthas, including ignorance, and simultaneously awakens realization by which one attains Sri Bhagwan. This appears to be incongruent with the sequence of eradication of anarthas previously outlined. It is indeed true that the holy name possesses such potency. Of this there is absolutely no doubt. But because Nama Prabhu is displeased with offenders, he does not reveal his full potency to them. This is to be understood as the sole reason why the anarthas of such people are not removed. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. With various scriptural statements, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura harmonizes the 5 stages of anartha-nivritti with the glories of the holy name. Shri Padyavali 16 states, Aham ha samharad akhilam sakrit udyad eva sakal lokasya taranir iva timir jalandhim jayati jagan mangalam harir nama. Just as the rising sun dissipates all darkness, similarly, by uttering the holy name just once, all the sins of a living entity, which are like an ocean of darkness, are destroyed. All glories to this all-auspicious Harinama. In Śrīmad Bhagavatam 6.16.44, King Chitraketu has glorified Bhagwan Ananta as follows. Nahi Bhagwan agaditam idam tad darshanan nirnam akhil papa kshayaha yan nam sakrit shravanat pukkaso api vimuchyate samsarat. O Bhagwan, only direct audience of you destroys all of a person's sins. This is not impossible, because merely by hearing your name once, even a wretched, dog-eating outcast is liberated from material existence. Thousands of such evidences describing the glories of Harinama are found throughout the scriptures. This is clearly understood from the life of Ajamila. By his calling the name of his son Nārāyaṇa, that is, by his uttering a semblance of the holy name or nama bhasa, all of his sins were destroyed. His ignorance, which is the root of all sin, was also vanquished, and he attained Bhagwan's lotus feet. How then can the sequential cessation of anarthas Ek-desh-vartini, Bahu-desh-vartini, Prayiki, Purna, and Atyantiki apply to a faithful devotee who accepts initiation from a bona fide spiritual master according to the precepts of Shastra and engages in Harinam Kirtana? Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura raises this point and reconciles it. Whatever the scriptures explain in regard to the glories of Śrīnama is completely true. There can be no doubt about this. Actually, the scriptures have described but a fraction of Śrīnama's limitless glories. There is no reason to disbelieve their statements. One who harbors any mistrust regarding this will be guilty of the terrible nama-aparādha of thinking the glories of the holy name to be an exaggeration, or of the aparādha of concocting a mundane interpretation. By uttering nama-bhasa, an inoffensive person destroys all his sins and thereafter attains Vaikuntha. In his Sārartha Darshini commentary on Śrīmad Bhagavatam 6.2.9 and 10, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura states that an inoffensive person will not be delayed in attaining Bhagwan because he does not have to pass through the stages of Shraddha, Sadhu-sang, Bhajan Kriya, and so forth. For him, there are only 2 steps: chanting the holy name or Namagrahan and ascending to Vaikuntha or Vaikuntha Arohan. Persons such as Ajamil exemplify this. Ajamil had committed many sinful acts, but he was not an aparādhi. Because of his unremitting attachment to wife and children, there was no opportunity for him to commit offences such as blaspheming sadhus. As a result, there was nothing to obstruct the potency of Bhagwan's holy name from illuminating his inoffensive heart. On the other hand, although the holy name possesses all potency, that is, Sarva-Shaktiman, it does not manifest its potency to offenders, being displeased with them. One should not harbor even the slightest doubt about the glories of the holy name when it does not manifest its power. It is to be understood that the only reason for this is the iniquity of the aparādhi and his anarthas. Text 5b. Offenders to Nama do not meet with Yamaraj, but they cannot become purified. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Even so, the envoys of Yamraja, the Lord of Death, have no power to arrest such offenders to the holy name, as stated in Śrīmad Bhagavatam 6.1.19. Even in their dreams, such persons never see Yamraja or his emissaries who carry ropes. Padma Purana states, even the practice of self-restraint or yama cannot purify offenders to the holy name. Here, the word yama refers to the 8 divisions of yogic mysticism or Ashtanga Yoga, such as adherence to rules or yama and regulations, that is, niyama. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. The author makes special point. Even if nam-aparādha remains in a person who utters the holy name, still Yamaraja and his messengers have no ability to mete out punishment to him. As long as the nam-aparādhis, anarthas, are not destroyed, he will not achieve the main fruit of chanting, prema, and he will never attain Bhagavan. He will, however, become free from the torments of hell meted out by Yamaraja. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 6.1.19 states, Sakrin manaha Krishna padaravindayor niveshitam tad gunragi yer iha na te yamam pashapritascha tad bhatan swapne api pashyantihi chirna nishkritaha. Those whose bee-like minds, greedy to taste the Lord's qualities, have even once tasted the nectar of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, have performed all types of atonement. Even in dreams, they never see Yamaraja or his servants who carry ropes, not to speak of the hellish planets. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura now mentions Padma Puran's description of the 10 offences to the holy name. Namno balad yasyahi papa buddhirna vidyate tasya yamerhi shuddhihi. Those who have a tendency to commit sins on the strength of the holy name, or who actually commit them, are not purified by yama even after a very long time. This statement seems to prove that nam-aparādhis do suffer punishment from yama. How then can we reconcile this with the first conclusion ascertained? Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura resolves this as follows. It should be understood that the word yama in this verse about nam-aparādha refers to the divisions of yoga, beginning with yam, that is rules, and niyam, that is regulations. In other words, such aparādhis are not purified even if they follow yama and niyama for a prolonged period. Offences to the holy name can be removed only when the holy name is pleased. How can the practices of yama and niyama and so forth destroy them? This is the import of this statement. The word yama here has not been used to indicate Yama Mahārāja. Text 5c. The mercy of the holy name destroys all types of anarthas. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. A wealthy master who is capable of bestowing punishment or favor does not support an impertinent servant. Rather, he remains indifferent to him. Due to his indifference, the offender gradually experiences sorrow, poverty, wretchedness, and lamentation. At the same time, a master will never maintain or punish a person with whom he has no connection. If the offending servant again behaves in a way that is favorable to the master in an effort to please him, then the master will show him benevolence, and the servant's unhappiness and poverty will gradually vanish. In the same manner, when an offender to the holy name performs non-duplicitous, uninterrupted service to the devotees of Bhagavan, the scriptures and the spiritual master, then, by the mercy of the holy name, his anarthas in the form of offences are gradually destroyed. This is undeniable. A person may say, I have not committed nam-aparādha. But it must be said that it is only after seeing the result that the cause can be deduced. The result of nama-aparādha is that the symptoms of prema do not awaken, even after so much chanting of the holy name. The cause, therefore, must be an offense committed either recently or long ago. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 2:3-24 explains, Tadashmasaram hridayam patedam yat grahiyamaner harinam dheyah na vikriyetāth yada vikaro netre jalam gatra ruheshu harshaha. Despite profusely chanting the name of Sri Hari, that person who does not experience ecstatic transformations such as a melting heart, tears and horripilation must have a heart that is hard like iron. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. As stated previously, aparādha is known as that which drives away radha or satisfaction. The holy name becomes displeased with an aparādhi, and it is seen that as a consequence, the aparādhi does not receive the fruit of uttering the holy name. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura illustrates this in a simple way so that we can understand it easily. A master remains indifferent to a misbehaving servant and does not maintain him, even though he is capable of doing so. As a result, the servant becomes despondent. Similarly, Nam Prabhu becomes indifferent to an offender and does not reveal his mercy or his great potency to him. As a result, such a person is beset with various types of anarthas. On seeing the offender miserable and destitute, it would be incorrect for us to assume that his wealthy master is incapable of maintaining one of his very own, his servant. He is capable of doing so, but chooses not to, being displeased with him. Nonetheless, because this person is one of the master's dependents, the wealthy master will still protect him and never abandon him in exchange for an outsider. If somehow the culprit realizes that he has made an offense and, understanding his master's mind, proceeds to serve him in an endeavor to please him, then the master, who by nature is compassionate, will gradually relieve the servant of his misery and destitution. Similarly, Sri Nam Prabhu, who is most competent to bestow grace, forever nourishes one who takes his shelter by bestowing prema upon him. This refers to one who takes shelter of the path of bhakti and engages in the activities of bhajana, headed by Nam Kirtan. But if a person who has taken shelter of the holy name commits nama-aparādha, then the holy name will become dissatisfied with the offender and withdraw his nourishment. In other words, the holy name will not bestow upon him the fruit of bhajan, prema. One should, therefore, never think that Sri Harinam is incompetent to deliver that result. Even though the offender has not received the result of bhajan, he is still Sri Nam Prabhu's object of protection and nourishment. Sri Nam Prabhu maintains only those who have taken shelter of him, not those who choose not to. In other words, not those who do not perform bhajan. When an offender understands his failing or blunder and as a result continuously performs service without duplicity in an endeavor to please the devotee, scripture or spiritual master he has offended, then Nama Prabhu will gradually become pleased with him, destroy his nama-aparādha and confer upon him the fruit of prema. This is incontestable. In his Sāra-darshini commentary on Śrīmad Bhagavatam 6-9 and 10, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura states that hearing Harikatha in the association of sadhus dissipates all types of offences to Harinam. One then receives the complete mercy of Bhakti Devi and consequently attains prema, which is the result of uttering the holy name. In this matter, there is no room for dispute. One may ask, I have not committed any offense, so why am I not experiencing the result of the holy name? The answer is that the cause of an effect can be deduced by examining the effect itself. Other than aparādha, no impediment can hinder one's attaining the fruit of the all-powerful names of Sri Hari. Therefore, if a person does not experience the results of the holy name, he is to understand that he must have committed aparādha. This should not be doubted even slightly. If someone does not experience the fruit of the holy name and did not intentionally commit any offense, he is to understand that he must have unintentionally committed an offense, that is, agyāt, aparādha. A person may engage in much Nam Sankirtan, but if he does not manifest the signs of prema or symptoms of spiritual ecstasy, that is, sattvic vikar, it is to be understood that he has not attained the fruit of chanting. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 2.3.24 states, Tadashma saram hridayam batedam yat grahyamanir harinam dheyah na vikriye tat yada vikaro netre jalam gatra ruheshu harshaha. A heart that does not melt despite hearing and chanting the all-auspicious name of Bhagwan is made of iron. When the heart melts, tears flow from the eyes and all the hairs on the body stand on end. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura writes in his Sārartha-darshini commentary on this verse that if a person does not experience bhakti transforming his heart even after continually chanting Harinam, then his heart is extremely hard like iron. In other words, despite a person's constant chanting of the holy name, external transformations do not manifest, such as tears flowing from his eyes or horripilation, and his heart does not melt. All such signs are indicative of Nam, aparādha. Mere tears and horripilation, however, may not be indicative of a melted heart either. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu states that tears, horripilation, and so on can also be seen to manifest in those who are wily and adept at exhibiting these symptoms, even though they do not possess a semblance of ecstasy. On the other hand, although the heart of great realized souls who are naturally grave melts when they chant Harinam, they may not be seen to suddenly display tears and horripilation. Therefore, from this verse, it is to be understood that if the heart does not actually melt upon uttering Harinam, it is as hard as iron, even if external transformations such as tears and horripilation are visible. When a devotee's heart melts with devotional sentiment or bhakti bhav and external symptoms manifest, such as the shedding of tears and horripilation, it is called sattvic vikar or ecstatic transformation. These are ordinary symptoms of a transformation of heart. However, there are other extraordinary symptoms. First, forbearance or shanti. Second, effective use of one's time or avyarth kalatva. Third, indifference to the allurements of this world or virakti. Fourth, absence of pride or manashunyata. Fifth, a steadfast conviction that Krishna will surely bestow his mercy or asha bandha. Sixth, intense longing to obtain one's goal or sam utkantha. Seventh, an unceasing relish for chanting the holy name or nam gane sadaruchi. Eighth, attachment to hearing narrations of Bhagwan's qualities or asaktis tad gunakhyane. And ninth, attraction to the places where Bhagwan resides or pritis tad vasati sthale. These 9 symptoms are the genuine signs of a melted heart. As soon as devotees who are devoid of aparādha engage in Nam Sankirtan, they realize the power of the holy name within their hearts and become immersed in relishing Sri Nam. This experience results in their heart completely melting, which gives rise to the above-mentioned 9 symptoms. Those who are offensive and jealous of the prosperity of others may utter the holy name a lot, but because the name is displeased with them, their heart does not melt with devotional sentiment. Even though they may exhibit external symptoms such as tears and horripilation, their heart is actually hard like iron. Therefore, this verse reproaches them. However, the heart of such people can be melted and the hardness removed by the power of receiving the association of saints who inspire them to perpetually chant the holy name. Text 5d. Nam aparādha makes one consider that which is transcendental to be material. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. In regard to offences to the holy name, it is stated, O best of the Brahmanas, what sort of offences to the holy name of the Lord completely destroy a human being's spiritual merit or sukriti and spiritual practices or sadhana, and give him a mundane perception of transcendental objects. The names, forms, qualities and pastimes of Sri Bhagwan can immediately bestow prema. What offences cause them to not bestow that fruit, even though someone may have performed Shravan and Kirtan for a long time? The holy abodes associated with Bhagwan also immediately bestow perfection. But why do they sometimes not do so, despite the persons residing in them and serving them for an extended period? Furthermore, items such as ghee, milk and betel nut that have been offered to Bhagwan immediately check the waves of the enjoying proclivity of the material senses. Despite a person's repeatedly accepting these with relish, what causes him to see such items which are by nature supremely transcendental and ordinary mundane objects? What grave offences to the holy name of Sri Bhagwan check all these from bestowing their respective results? This question is asked with trepidation and wonder. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Here the author raises another doubt. The scriptures state that activities such as hearing and chanting about the names, forms, qualities and pastimes of Bhagwan immediately bestow prema, that visiting all the holy places yields perfection, and that the food remnants of Bhagwan are transcendental. There is abundant evidence for such statements. Yet, even after hearing about and glorifying the names and qualities of Bhagwan for a long time, we do not receive prema, and even after residing in a holy place for an extended period, we do not attain perfection or the fulfillment of our most cherished desire. And even after offering foodstuffs to Sri Bhagwan, we have no realization of the transcendental nature of prasada. What offense causes people to not receive the fruit of these activities? And if these statements are true, the Bhagwan's names, one's residence in holy places, and honoring Bhagwan's remnants do not give their fruits due to aparādha, then what need is there for aparādhis to engage in the activities of bhajan, such as hearing and chanting? It will not be possible for them to perform the other limbs of bhakti also, such as taking shelter at the feet of spiritual master or Guru Padashraya. After raising this point, Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura himself reconciles it by affirming that hearing and chanting Bhagwan's names, residing in the holy places, and accepting Bhagavad Prasad are never fruitless. They always have the ability to bestow their respective results. Why then do they not manifest their potency? In response, he then explains that it has already been stated that for those free from aparādha, there are only two steps to attain Bhagwan: chanting the holy name and ascending to Vaikuntha. But persons free from aparādha are rarely found in this world. It is only due to offences that this body has been created. Therefore, everyone has committed aparādha to some degree or other, either in a previous birth or recently. Accordingly, the 9 stages mentioned from Shraddha to the attainment of Prema follow a logical sequence. The revered author clarifies this point with an example. In relation to the description of offences to the holy name, the following verse has been quoted. Kāte aparādha vipendra namno bhagvatah krita vinignante nirnam krityam prakritam hi anyanti hi. O best of the twice born, what offences to the holy name of Sri Bhagwan destroy all a person's accumulated spiritual merits and practices and cause him to consider transcendental objects to be material. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura elucidates this verse as follows. It is seen in Shastra that only by performing Shravan and Kirtan of Sri Bhagwan's names, forms, qualities and pastimes is a person instantly blessed with prema. It is stated at the very beginning of Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1.1.2 Sadhyo hriday avrudyate atra kritbhi shubhist takshanat. Sri Hari is immediately bound within the heart of pious souls who desire to hear Śrīmad Bhagavatam. Without prema, Bhagwan can never be confined within anyone's heart. The result of simply desiring to hear Śrīmad Bhagavatam, in which there are descriptions of Sri Hari's qualities, names and so on, is the awakening of prema. In the same way, the Puranas describe the power of abodes like Sri Vrindavan to bestow prema. Aho madhupuri dhanya vaikunṭhaṅ gariyasi dinam ekam nivasena haro bhakti prajayate. Vayu Puran and Padma Puran. Aho, the abode of Mathura is supremely blessed and even more glorious than Vaikuntha, for by residing there for only one day, a person attains bhakti to the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the glories of foodstuffs offered to the Lord or Mahaprasada are also unprecedented. The Venerable Sri Uddhava said to Sri Krishna, Tayo pabhukta sragagandhavaso alankara charchitaha uchchist bhojino dasas tav mayam jayemahi. O Lord, we decorate ourselves with the garlands, sandalwood paste, cloth or ornaments worn by you. Since we are your servants and subsist on your remnants, we will certainly conquer your illusory energy, Maya. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11.6.46. Despite engaging in activities that are supremely capable of bestowing prema, repeatedly hearing about and glorifying Bhagwan's names, forms, qualities and pastimes, residing in the Dhamma for a long time and honoring Mahaprasad for many days, one's anarthas headed by aparādha only increase. Prema does not develop. As a result, one views these transcendental objects with mundane conception. Nam aparādha is such a great obstacle in one's bhajan that one trembles in fear and asks with alarm, what are those offenses to the holy name? Every sādhaka should thoroughly understand these offenses and, with utmost attention, stop committing them and thus progress on the path of bhajan. Text 5e. How a taste for bhakti returns to one who has committed aparādha. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. One could thus appropriately conclude that offenders to the holy name are opposed to Bhagwan. In other words, it is impossible for such persons to take shelter at the lotus feet of a spiritual master and engage in the previously mentioned practices of bhajan or bhajan kriya. And this is a fact. When a person is running a high fever, he loses his appetite and cannot eat grains and so on. In the same way, when a person's offenses to Srinam are severe, he has no opportunity to perform bhajan kriya, the practice of Shravan, Kirtan and so on. There is no doubt about this. But when the fever subsides and its intensity decreases, he will begin to regain his appetite. Similarly, after suffering for some time, the intensity of offense fades and a little taste develops for Bhagavad Bhakti. In this manner, the offender to the holy name develops the qualification to perform bhakti. Even after a fever subsides, nutritious foodstuffs like milk and grains can only give limited, not complete nourishment to a convalescing patient. But by regularly taking medicine and following a wholesome diet for some time, those foodstuffs will gradually remove his lassitude and feebleness. In the same manner, when that person who is now qualified to perform bhakti engages for some time in the practice of Shravan and Kirtan, those practices will gradually bear fruit. Hence, it has been appropriately stated that a person begins with faith or shraddha. He will then take the association of saintly personalities or sadhu sangha and engage in the practices of devotion or bhajan kriya. Therefore, his obstacles will begin to diminish anartha-nivritti, and he will develop firm faith or nishtha and a taste or ruchi for bhakti. He will then acquire attachment or asakti to Bhagwan, from which pure spiritual emotion or bhava gradually manifests. Finally, rapturous love of God or prema arises. This is indeed the sequence in which prema arises in the sādhaka. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Is it not fitting that such fearsome aparādhas make the offenders averse to Bhagwan, thus not allowing them to perform the practices of bhakti, such as accepting shelter at the feet of Sri Guru and performing bhajan? The author comments that it is natural to have such a question. However, just as a person with a high fever cannot eat foodstuffs, in the same way, as long as a person's offences are severe, there is no opportunity for him to take shelter of the feet of Sri Guru and engage in the activities of bhajan like Shravan and Kirtan. When a person's fever reduces, he regains his appetite. Similarly, after suffering the result of offences for a long time, the effects of the offence weaken and one develops some taste in the activities of bhajan. That is why one can then take shelter of the feet of the spiritual master and engage in bhajan kriya. When a person's fever initially diminishes, nutritive foodstuffs do not nourish him substantially, only slightly. In the same way, even after the force of an offense has decreased, a person does not develop any significant relish for or realization of Sri Krishna's qualities, names, or pastimes. His taste for them is negligible. But when he takes the appropriate medicine and over a prolonged period follows a diet to convalesce and so forth, his fever gradually disappears and his body regains strength. Likewise, when a person takes the medicine for aparādha, sincere and continuous service to Sri Nam, Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas, his aparādha gradually disappears. To the degree that a person's aparādha is removed, his bhajan is nourished and he becomes astonished by bhajan rasa. The divine names and qualities of Bhagwan are utterly capable of instantly bestowing the wealth of prema. Nevertheless, as long as aparādha remains within the sādhaka, it is appropriate to set out the stages of shraddha, sadhu sang, bhajan kriya, anartha nivritti, nishtha, and so on. Text 5f. The bhakta is free from offences and prarabdha karma, even if devoid of prema or undergoing external miseries. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Sometimes, upon not perceiving the symptoms of prema in devotee who are fixed in their practice of Nam Kirtan, and upon witnessing their inclination to perform misdeeds, some people attribute it to offences to the holy name. Not only this, but upon witnessing the significant material miseries faced by such devotees, they also assume that the fructified result of these devotees' sinful actions or prarabdha papa has not been fully destroyed. It is determined through Shastra that Ajamil was free from aparādha. Although Ajamil had named his son Nārāyaṇa and uttered that name again and again each day to call him, he was devoid of prema. Moreover, it was perceived that he was inclined to perform sinful acts such as keeping association with a prostitute. Although the Pandavas, headed by Yudhishthira, had no prarabdha karma, they were seen to suffer many types of worldly tribulations. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. It has already been stated that when the symptoms of prema do not arise, despite the person's engagement in devotional practices such as Nam Sankirtan, it evidences the presence of aparādha. The author now states, however, that this principle is not universally applicable. It is also seen that some persons, although devoid of aparādha, manifest no symptoms of prema and still maintain a tendency to sin. It has been determined throughout Shastra that Ajamil was free from aparādha. Had he not been, it would not have been reasonable for the Vishnudutas or emissaries of Sri Vishnu to come to protect him as a result of his uttering a semblance of the holy name or Nam Abhasa when calling his son, nor would his attainment of Vaikuntha have been plausible. Ajamil had named his infant son Nārāyaṇa, but although he would call him by that name many times each day, prema was not visibly awakening in him. Furthermore, he was disposed to committing the sin of maintaining a relation with a prostitute. Nevertheless, he was not offensive, and his tendency to keep that relationship out of past habit was not a sign that he had committed aparādha. This was established when Sri Vishnu's envoys came to protect him simply because he had called the name of his son, Nārayaṇa, at the moment of death. Text 5g. Srinam Prabhu may not reveal himself despite being pleased with the devotee. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Thus, just as a fruit tree only gives fruit seasonally at a suitable time, similarly, the name of Bhagwan, being pleased with an inoffensive sādhaka, bestows his mercy at the appropriate time, not immediately. The multitude of sins resulting from the influence of devotees' former habits are insignificant, just like the bite of a defanged snake. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. A fruit-bearing tree delivers fruit at the appropriate time only. Although Sri Hari may be pleased with a person devoid of aparādha, he only delivers the result of his sadhana to him at a suitable time. It is thus understood that the heaps of sins that the inoffensive Ajamil committed out of habit were as harmless and insignificant as the bite of a fangless serpent. Text 5h. Bhagwan personally confers suffering upon his devotees to increase their humility and eagerness. Sanskrit Bhāvānuvāda. Whatever disease, lamentation, or distress may be perceived in devotees is not due to their prarabdha karma or reaction to their past activity. In the scriptures, Bhagwan himself states that I gradually take away all the wealth of the person I favor, experiencing hardship upon hardship. My impoverished devotee is abandoned by his kith and kin. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:88-8. Bhagwan is also said, severe disease and poverty are the symptoms of my mercy. We find many such statements in the scriptures. Bhagwan, the benefactor of his devotee, is indeed most adept at increasing his devotee's humility and eagerness through suffering. Since the devotee is free from the result of his previous actions, the suffering he endures is given by Bhagwan. It is not his prarabdha. This is the opinion of those who know the truth. Thus ends the Bhāvānuvāda of the third shower of nectar, named Sarvagraha Prashamini, or elimination of all impediments to bhakti. Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti. Even though some devotees have no fructified sinful reactions or prarabdha, some persons, upon seeing their material miseries such as disease, lamentation, and poverty, as well as their sinful proclivities, mistake these to be the result of their prarabdha. But were the various troubles given to the 5 Pandavas, headed by Yudhishthir Maharaj, their exile to the forest and their inclination to play dice, caused by their prarabdha? They are Sri Krishna's eternal associates, so it goes without saying that they have no such prarabdha. It was previously mentioned their prarabdha is destroyed by sadhan bhakti. The Mahārajas state that even at the stage of liberation, the prarabdha of jnanis who have realized Brahma does not dissipate without their having to suffer it. Such fearsome prarabdha is easily destroyed, however, when bhakti manifests in the living entity's heart due to his having engaged in any aspect of bhakti such as Nam, Kirtan. Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī states in his Sri Namashtaka, 4th verse, Yad Brahma Sakshat Kriti Nishthayapi Vinashamayati Vinana Bhoge Apeti Nam Spurnena Tatte Prarabdha Karmeti Viroti Vedaha. O Bhagwan, in the form of the holy name, the Vedas loudly declare that the devotee's fructified reaction or prarabdha karma, which cannot be eliminated even by resolute meditation on impersonal Brahma, which is like the flow of an unbroken stream of oil, is at once mitigated by your appearance on their tongue, even without their undergoing any suffering. Realization of knowledge of impersonal Brahma can destroy the results of accumulated past activities and of the activities one is currently performing. But one's sinful and pious fructified reactions are destroyed only by suffering them, not by knowledge of impersonal Brahma. Simply by uttering your holy name, however, that prarabdha karma is destroyed. Shri Krishna personally told Uddhava, Bhaktihi punati mananishtha swapakan api sambhavat. That is, resolute devotion to me purifies even one who has been born into a family of dog-eaters. Śrīmad Bhagavatam 11:14-21. The fault of low birth is a result of one's prarabdha karma. According to an axiom of logic or nyaya, removal of the cause or karan brings about the removal of the effect or karya. Accordingly, by acknowledging that the defect of a lower birth, which represents an effect or karya, has been eliminated, it is understood that prarabdha or the cause or karan must have been erased already. Moreover, the Puranas explain that all mental and physical ailments resulting from prarabdha are destroyed by Nam Sankirtan. Ādhayo vyādhayo yasya smaranam nam kirtanat tadeva vilayam yanti tam anantam namamyaham. Skanda Puran, quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas 11:355. I offer obeisance to Lord Anantadeva. Remembering him and uttering his name immediately dispels all kinds of mental and physical ailments. Thus, even though devotees are free from prarabdha, Bhagwan mercifully gives them worldly disease, suffering and lamentation in order to increase their humility, eagerness, anxiety and so on. In Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1:8-25, it is seen that Queen Kunti prayed to Sri Krishna only for adversity. It is thus easily understood that hidden within this adversity lies the treasure of prema. The Supreme Lord has directly declared, When I favor someone, I quickly take away his wealth. Then his relatives, considering him wretched, abandon him. At that time, devoid of shelter, he takes full refuge at my lotus feet. Bhagwan has also said, The great ailment of poverty is a symptom of my special mercy. Hence, for the devotee's auspiciousness, Bhagwan purposefully gives him sorrow, a humbling situation, and so on. Thus, because the devotee does not have to undergo the results of his karma, the miseries he experiences can never be said to be the fruits of his prarabdha. Thus ends the Pīyūṣa-varṣiṇī-vṛtti commentary on the third shower of nectar named Sarvagraha Prashmini, or elimination of all impediments